Lastly, we have Mr. Pramod Peter, the Vice President of Renewables in REConnect Energy, a renewable energy and sustainability professional with experience in power markets, renewable energy procurement, open access, QCA operations, and DCM optimization.
Is very hard to solve right now. If that equation is solved by someone like single window service, project acquisition mode, whatever body we establish, if that equation is solved, I don't think the problem of DISCOM will be discussing, or transmission will be discussing, or RE growth will be discussing. The curtailment happening because power demand and power generation are at two different locations. I'm generating more in Rajasthan, but I'm not able to take the power to the Odisha because of this transmission issue. In summary, there is a policy, there are funds allocated, there are schemes already being planned. Execution, there is no centralized authority. If we solve that, we will be able to distribute power equally in India, and that is the future wherein RE would develop like anything in India. And for the balance part of it, which part we cannot transmit because of any given reason, storage is the only option. And storage, we are debating in all the forums, but it's very simple. If I invest 1 rupee in storage right now at the grid level, it's a 200% benefit to the grid, 200 rupees sort of benefit. So it's in summary messages, we have policy, let's establish some central authority to execute the transmission project. Battery storage, even do not debate it. Earmark the fund and deploy it immediately. And then definitely they require monitoring and technical layer. And the technical layer has to have single function of looking at demand supply gap, storage versus real-time supply, storage versus generation versus storage. If these equations are balanced, I think RE growth nobody can stop.
So you mean to say storage role is going to become very
is
critical.
One of the is very critical part of the equation.
Yeah. So,
but not only just piece of the larger puzzle.
Right. So I'll come to now Sreenivas. So Sreenivas, how do you see this integration of storage into renewable energy grid? Where mostly grid is used for renewable energy transmission and distribution. What technical challenges are there, and why the things are not moving in the right direction?
Hello. Yeah. So as Pankaj was saying, the batteries are one piece of the puzzle. I mean, we need to recognize one thing: batteries don't generate energy. They're just a storage container. So the generation still needs to be led by whether it's a wind, whether it's solar, or other forms of the renewable energy. It must be generation. And the thing is, the battery only acts as a flexible layer, cushioning between your excess generation or excess demand and how it can actually balance that. As Pankaj and Pramod was mentioning, that technical layer which actually augments the generation to the consumption so that it can move the curveball either towards making the batteries to release the energy back into the grid, because there's a cloud cover, a significant cloud cover, unexpected one, and the generation has significantly dropped. But a consumer on the other end doesn't recognize the weather factors. And again, one thing we all need to recognize is that 90% of the renewable energies are climatic dependent. So you're at the best behavior of sun, the wind. So if imagine if there is a climatic conditions which is impacting both of them, your renewable energy targets significantly drop. But that doesn't mean you're demanding the consumers to drop their consumption, and that's where the batteries come into the picture. Now, coming back to the second part of the question in terms of what is actually delaying the deployment of the batteries. I think I was speaking to Krishna before we got onto the dais. My personal view right now is the cost of the cost of the batteries in India right now is at a very high level. Imagine speaking about solar back in 2005 or pre-2010. So the rate of the solar at the time has been high, and you have kind of seen very small number of players kind of coming into the solar, kind of let's say 15 years back. But right now, the cost of the solar has been kind of decreased drastically, which is making it much more economical for anyone to enter into the solar industry and embrace it. And a similar kind of behavior pattern needs to happen with energy. We need to encourage, I mean, there is a viability gap fund that the Indian government kind of has provided. But again, I think there's also some policy change that needs to happen. The VGF, the viability gap funding, only comes into the picture when you talk about more than a 1 megawatt, kind of a couple of megawatts. But not every consumer requires a 1 megawatt battery. And that's where kind of your veracity comes into the picture. You have to embrace not only the big players, but you also have to embrace the MSMEs, which is the heartbeat of the country. And the moment you encourage the MSMEs with some sort of policies or subsidies to adopt the batteries, it's just a matter of time. And as Pankaj said, I just want to emphasize one thing. It's not a question of if. There's no doubt about it. It's only a question of when. Everybody's going to embrace the batteries, and that is kind of driven by two factors: the cost of the battery when it comes down, and the policies which encourage the battery cost to come down.
I have a point to add.
I'm asking questions. So who should bear the cost of a battery? So from where the money should come? From government side, or from consumer side, or from some other organization? Who should bear the cost? I think Pankaj, you can take up.
The question belongs to Sreenivas. So we need to little bit ask a deeper question on battery side of it, and then the funding question. Because first comes the product, and then comes the funding part of it. So battery is the larger generalized name for technologies, and we are familiar with lithium thanks to EV movement, thanks to the Chinese who have popularized as a storage, lithium as a storage option. But there is not only one option, but there are multiple types of options. And not many people know that at least Gujarat is a state wherein they have balanced the equation of Chinese lithium batteries versus Indian grown technologies like vanadium flow batteries. Right now they are deploying some hydrogen based solution as well. So my message to the industry, or message to this forum, is that when we look at battery, we have to also look at that what type of battery should be applicable for duration and the stability of the grid. For 8-hour duration, you have a different battery which cannot answer the question of 2 to 4 hour sort of batteries. So we need to dig deeper, promote R&D, more on technologies which is non-lithium based. So that's the first part of the equation, where you fix up that at what cost the product can be done. Once the product cost is done, you'll be surprised to know that the bearing is not a question. The cost bearing, there are lined up IPPs, there are lined up banks, there are lined up you can say funds available. So funding is not a question. Funding can be done through various routes, and everybody at least is ready to invest in battery, because that is sort of asset which is on which the grid is going to be dependent. So if you ask question to any banker, that will answer yes. The only part is the reliability and dependency. Reliability of the tech and dependency on evolving global dynamics, and how we can be independent from the global dynamics. If these two questions are there, my answer is anybody can fund the battery. Anybody should fund the battery. Funding is not a question. It's the question of reliability versus R&D. So if the reliable batteries are there, you will find n number of investors. And if you look at overall bidding scenario, what had happened at different states and different stages, you will see that larger chunks being picked up by IPPs, smaller chunks being picked up by smaller player, and at least in Maharashtra, I have seen people investing in capex at their capacity, be it home, be it SME, and they are getting funded through banks, etc., etc. So cost bearing is, best answer is that if it's grid, has to be government. If it's regulating your power need, then it has to be you. But essentially the top layer, bankers and financiers, are asking two questions, broader. Which is it reliable? Is it dependent on global factors or not? So these questions are answered, I think money investment and by whom would be answered automatically, in my opinion.
Yeah, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so a very interesting question in terms of that you asked before in terms of who has to bear the price of the battery, right? Now it's a very, I find this question really interesting because there was also a regulation that had come up, a draft regulation in Tamil Nadu.
Can you be little louder? Louder. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying it's a very interesting question because most recently there has been a draft regulation on BESS has come up in Tamil Nadu. I think last month or around 2 months back. My view is that we should approach this particular question not ideologically but mostly on a beneficiary basis. Who's going to benefit from having a BESS at the plant end, right? The Tamil Nadu regulation, at least the draft, what it says is that at least 25% going forward, whatever capacities are going to be commissioned in the state, will need to have 25% at least established as BESS, right, along with their plants. Now that's a very that answers the question basically, right? Because you are asking the developer to compulsorily, mandatorily have BESS at the site. This is to solve the problem of variability, of course. But even with having a BESS, if you look into the regulation more deeply, they have also mentioned how is it that the operator or the generator knows when to charge, when to discharge, right? Now for that, the regulation specifically mentions about certain frequencies of time wherein the generator will have to, or us as a QCA will have to send a schedule of 30 minutes, 15 minutes, almost on a daily basis in certain frequencies on what is the status of the charge of the battery, all right? They also have made a provision where multiple BESS capacities in the state in a specific geographical location, for example, they can all be clubbed together, right? And then as us as a QC or probably any other agency who's in this particular field or has the technical capability to forecast, will have to forecast the generation at the particular state, also figure out and send that information of status of charge on an aggregate level for multiple BESS in that region. The grid operator will then send information to either us or to the generator saying that, this is when you have to discharge or this is when you have to, stop it, right? Depending on what the demand looks like. So this communication, this layer of protocol, I'm glad to mention that this is something that is under discussion. This is something that we are working on, and this is something that people are serious about. Regulators are serious about this. So I think we're moving in the positive direction, right? And the future looks good. I'm optimistic about it. So
Yeah, thank you, Pramod. Just last question to Mr. Krishna. So, is this energy storage we can consider as a generation asset of the future? What is your opinion on that? I think already Pramod has spoken, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
So, hello. So, will a battery storage system be considered part of the entire asset you're asking? So, to add on to that and to answer this question, see, our evolution in terms of renewable energy also is happening layer by layer, right? So, our assessment based out of working with the C&I space, we believe that the storage as a implementation would already started at a utility scale level, which will penetrate into C&I at the plant side. Let's say a 10 megawatt, 20 megawatt, 5 megawatt solar plant. The best would be implemented at the solar plant side, and probably by, let's say, this should happen around 28, 29. That by 30, banking would more or less go. Banking of renewable energy in C&I space would more or less go. and then by probably early 2030s, probably that should hit the factory side, where BEST would show off the peak demand, or probably incentivize industries to reduce their contract demand, let's say by 10%. To add on to people at podium added, this should be incentivized in a way. Let's say someone putting a BEST at the factory side would probably have a reduced payout of contract demand charges for the balance of the contract demand. Or let's say someone who is putting BEST at the C&I plant side, he should be allowed to have a reduced wheeling or transmission charges. So this way, this can be incentivized by putting giving this kind of support. And yes, and in fact, in terms of residential market, you are already seeing residential rooftop has picked up in a big way, and which should have happened actually quite a few years back, but it is picked up really well. So in terms of penetration at that side, I personally foresee that within a span of 8-10 years, maybe a battery can be as good as your refrigerator or AC in your residence. So that is what we foresee, and that is our whole industry ecosystem believing as we grow into the industry. And yes, this could be part of the entire part of the generation asset.
Yeah, thank you so much. And now we can take one quick question. If anyone is having a question from audience side, any question from audience? Yeah, please.
Hello, sir. I'm Sharad Kumar. We are slightly new to the universe, so maybe the question is slightly technical but governance related also. Adding all these elements in a power system makes it incredibly complex, right, sir? So like a IT infra type of network operating center type of thing. Do we have any such thought process to develop in that manner where you can watch, monitor very actively and control, or because I can feel the complexity going on very, very high. Adding, atomic power, battery system, it will make incredibly complex. Thanks, sir.
Should I?
Yeah, please.
So let me understand the question, because a little bit of fragment will lost. Are you asking that as a consumer, maybe IT industry, you're looking to integration done of storage of renewable energy? Yeah. So at the consumption level, at the generation level, which point or both the levels you are asking? Okay. So let's look into the easiest question, which is your consumption level. So you have a meter. From there, you are getting your data. That lies the key. If you understand the complexity of installing any renewable energy source and battery, at that point of time, you need to look at your consumption not from the standpoint of hourly or Excel sheet basis. You have to have your average data, current, voltage, energy, kilowatt hour, and whatnot on a real-time basis, and at the interval of 5 minutes on a basically analysis basis. If you have that data available, you will be able to figure it out. What are your highs and lows, and what are your averages? In those averages, right now, companies, my colleague have already talked about, my counterpart have already talked about that there are forecasting methods available. Use that forecasting method. Do not use Excel. If you have data point available, for which we are, companies like us providing you AI boxes. So if you install one of the AI box, data is generated. From that generation, there are n number of methods to determine the exact capacity, which can talk about real time and peak power capacities, and you can size the battery or solar plant based on that data. Important emphasis is on data analysis technology availability. If you have that data in hand, then largely the equation is already been sorted out by government in terms of open access, behind the meter kind of a project. If you are trying to do an open access project, there are policies by which you can build the power. Question is where to put the storage. That is also been answered from the load point of view. You can put it at both the levels. Idea is to monitor generation and the load not from the Excel standpoint, look from more granular standpoint of 5-minute, 15-minute, and 60-minute data. This probably answer a little bit of the question, but your question is much deeper. But that's my take. That's my 2 cents on the question.
Yeah, please.
Just want to add, I mean, if I understand your question to what Pankaj said, I think this begs kind of an important discussion on the intersection of the asset data versus the consumption and how we can kind of look at the real-time data. If you look at all the consumers and the generators, they are independent silos. You have plant there, you have a plant there, you have a plant there. And the data is actually sitting in the plants. I think as Pramod was saying, kind of, we need to bring the technical layer where we provide the data interoperability so that irrespective of the plant where you are, whether you're maybe in Rajasthan kind of using beryllium batteries, or whether you're kind of using sodium ion batteries, or whether you're a solar or a wind, if there's a data interoperability which can be flagged onto a common data platform, that's what kind of Pankaj was saying. The data analysis piece is something where I strongly believe is currently missing in the Indian renewable sector. There are kind of countries out there which are actually doing that. I mean, we need to be, I think it's an evolution. It's not a kind of, please don't consider this as a critic. It's an evolution. We always evolve, we embrace the new kind of forms of working. And India is a big country, right? We can't compare ourselves to kind of some smaller countries which are predominantly doing on the renewables. I don't want to name and shame any country here or give kudos to the countries, but we need to understand the complexities, the veracities. It's a matter of time. It's just a matter of time by the time we have such kind of standards where you can completely monitor your energy assets.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now we are going to conclude this session. So I hope we got the understanding, like this grid readiness crisis, we can eliminate. We have to adopt right technology with right policy interventions. Thank you so much for your patience listening. Thank you.